On Taishan Mountain, at this moment, it seemed that there was only Lord Taishan. On Taishan Mountain, at this moment, it seemed that there was only Lord Taishan. The moment his finger fell, the vast and endless space seemed to stand still. Everyone felt an inexplicable breath, and their thoughts seemed to have stopped. Between heaven and earth, there was only that one sword. As this sword was unleashed, the sky glimmered, and the figure of Lord Taishan became illusory. While he seemed to be in the same place, his actual body had appeared in front of old demon Luo. That finger, a sword, pierced through the sky. When Lord Taishan made his move, old demon Luo had already sensed it. The demonic might on his body exploded instantly, sending pressure across thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. The sky turned to darkness, pitch black. His palm slammed down without any hesitation, colliding with that sword. In an instant the world was dimmed and dull. Darkness fell in front of many people's eyes, and they felt that death had descended. But in the darkened sky, an incredibly bright sword light pierced through the sky, and the divine light penetrated from old demon Luo's body, reaching directly above the sky dome. In the next moment, the endless divine light of swordsmanship pierced the darkness, causing the light to shine through. Old demon Luo's body drowned in the sword light, awash like the water, and old demon Luo's body seemed to turn elusive. All the will of the way was broken. Under this ultimate attack, time seemed to stand still. The crowd seemed to witness the struggle of old demon Luo. Up and down Taishan Mountain, even the people of the entire Taishan city felt the power of this blow. Countless ideas came into their heads, but in fact, it was perhaps only for a moment. Buzz! The divine light sailed across. The crowd saw a sword stab at the sky. Countless divine swords pierced the darkness, and the demonic might roiled non-stop. Old demon Luo's body shot straight above the sky dome, and gradually faded until it disappeared. However, soon, a face appeared in the sky. It was old demon Luo's face. At this time, the face was somewhat distorted. Its eyes were extremely cold. Many did not even dare to look at those eyes. It was as if they would fall into them. You broke through. Old demon Luo's voice was gloomy. Lord Taishan didn't answer his question. His eyes swept up to the place above the sky. He said, "Divine capital of Shilling put in such a great effort, because you didn't want to see me break through?" He had the disciples provoke disputes, and the crown prince of the divine capital of Shilling, Luo Chongyang, pinned down several of his disciples. At the same time, old demon Luo attempted to destroy Taishan Palace. This was not only just to interrupt his cultivation, but to possibly injure him severely, completely stopping any hope of him making a breakthrough. As a major demonic figure of Shilling, old demon Luo was ruthless and vicious. He showed absolutely no mercy. Just want to take a look at your present state. Now that I have seen it, divine capital of Shilling will bid our goodbyes, old demon Luo said. Suddenly, Luo Chongyang and the others were eager to retreat. He could see that one sword strike just now had already injured his father. Lord Taishan had wounded his father with one blow, which showed that there was another breakthrough in his realm. Taishan Mountain clearly was not a place for him to tarry any longer. "Do you think you can come and go as you please?" Lord Taishan said as he waved his hand toward the void. A huge character of the way appeared suddenly, hanging high above the sky. "Luo Chongyang, previously, when you destroyed my character of the way, I didn't pursue the matter on account of your junior status. Now walk out of this character on your own. You are not allowed to use power of any kind," Lord Taishan said to Luo Chongyang. Luo Chongyang's expression suddenly stiffened as he glanced at the word. At this moment, the power of the character was even more tyrannical and contained a terrible power of destruction. His face was sullen as he glanced at Lord Taishan. Eventually, he stepped into the void and walked toward that character, actually entering right into it. Infinite sword will condensed and manifested from the character of the way, tearing at Luo Chongyang's body. He seemed to be suffering under a terrible might of the way. His surroundings were distorted, and his body seemed to be pierced by infinite divine swords of the great path. Blood dripped from him. Every drop of blood contained the horrible will of the way. Bang! Luo Chongyang's hair disheveled was flying in the wind. His body seemed to have stepped into the swordsmanship of Lord Taishan. Although Lord Taishan stood below, The character seemed to be one with his mind, emitting sharp scraping sounds. Luo Chongyang walked through it step by step, and when he passed through the character completely, his body was covered in blood. The wild breath above his body was also floating. What does my lord think? Luo Chongyang asked Lord Taishian. Everyone who witnessed this scene below was trembling. Luo Chongyang had suffered such humiliation, but old demon Luo did not come out. It was obvious that the old demon must be injured, so that he did not intervene, allowing Luo Chongyang to suffer such disgrace. Just how strong was Lord Taishian at this moment? Had Lord Taishian really made a breakthrough? Some prominent figures, such as the Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace and the Divine General of the Golden Divine Nation, fixed their attention on Lord Taishian. The strength of old demon Luo was well known to them, but now, old demon Luo not only failed in the sneak attacks, but was also wounded by Lord Taishian. It was obvious that Lord Taishian had grown more fearsome than before. The position of Taishian Mountain in the higher heavens realm would change again. We have finished with the matter of you destroying the character of the way. Next, since the disciples of the divine capital of Xiling wanted to spar with the disciples of Taishian Mountain, and you were the one who forcibly interrupted the whole affair, the discussion is not yet over. Let's continue with the exchange, Lord Taishian said again, intending to deal with each and every one of the transgressions. First it was old demon Luo, then it was Luo Chongyang, and finally, it would be those disciples of the divine capital of Xiling who came to pick a fight. Moreover, he even re-added the character and re-engraved it in the void. Was it to allow those who had made their moves before to continue leveraging its power? The disciples of the divine capital of Xiling were no longer aching to fight. Their king of the divine capital, old demon Luo, was defeated, and the crown prince Luo Chongyang was forced to walk through the character of the way. It could be said that they had completely failed, having been unable to effect Lord Taishuan's breakthrough. What was the point of continuing to fight? Disciples of Taishian Mountain, on the other hand, looked rather sharp. At this time, Futian still sat in the string pavilion. He looked at the character of the way and resonated with it. There were some waves in his heart. The sword strike that was previously unleashed by Lord Taishian was too profound. The fleeing divine sword. With one strike, Yin and Yang were thrown into pandemonium, causing the passage of time, which was destroyed. One point of the finger was one strike, and one strike caused the fleeting passage of time. Such a strike, even at his utmost, was impossible to comprehend fully. He had only observed the magnificence of the fleeting divine sword, and was perceiving what kind of technique it was. Now, was Lord Taishian reminding him to continue fighting? Although the advantage was entirely theirs, it was still really difficult for the disciples of Taishian Mountain to defeat the disciples of the divine capital of Xiling. Therefore, Lord Taishian may still allow him to continue to strike back. When his thoughts turned to this, Futian's mind moved, and in an instant, in the land above Luoyue, the sword will whistled as if calling her. Luoyue revealed a strange look. Was the sword looking for her? This was clearly wanting to use her for the strike. It was as if it was really her sword. Luoyue had no words but still cooperated. Her palms were outstretched, and a sword was born clamoring in the void. With the vast sky, the light of countless divine swords was whistling this way, surrounding her sword. The sword chi turned destructive, leaving sword marks between the sky and earth. Go! Luoyue pointed her finger through the air. Although the others were making their move, it did not prevent her from controlling her sword. But the other swords also followed hers, cutting at the disciples of the divine capital of Xiling, who were in the void. The second level of the technique, cleave of all things, though not as powerful, was equally terrifying. Countless blood splattered, and many of the disciples of the divine capital of Xiling were pale as they were bleeding. There were even cultivators whose bodies were penetrated by the swords. The character of the way resonates. Many on Taishian Mountain looked up at the character in the void, and they all felt the power of its resonance. It was as if this character was hidden within it. Therefore, it urged the terrible fight of swordsmanship on the battlefield. In a blink of an eye, almost all the cultivators from the divine capital of Xiling were injured by sword chi with varying degrees of injuries. A moment later, the whistling swords stopped. Those cultivators of the divine capital of Shilling, who were arrogant and overbearing when they arrived, now appeared exhausted and powerless. Take your people and get out of here. Next time, if you dare to come to Taishan Mountain like this again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Lord Taishan looked at Luo Chongyang and admonished him. Suddenly, Luo Chongyang hung his head and led his cronies away. Without any hint of anger, Luo Chongyang waved his hand and led the people from the divine capital of Shilling away from Taishan Mountain. Watching the disappearing figures in the void, everyone on Taishan Mountain felt strong feelings of emotion and shock. Lord! One after another, the voices called out as their eyes looked toward Lord Taishan. Did Lord Taishan make the breakthrough? Master! The 4 disciples of Lord Taishan also looked at their master, because even they did not know if their master had broken through or not. Congratulations to Lord Taishan for great success this time. And the realm is deeper. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace said and bowed slightly to Lord Taishan. Congratulations to our Lord. Others said one after the other. They bowed in the direction of Lord Taishan. That thought of those who cultivated on Taishan Mountain reappeared. Would the master establish a clan and pass on his teachings? Now that the master had stepped into another level, even prominent characters as powerful as old Demon Luo could not withstand his attack. If Lord Taishan took this opportunity to establish his own clan, many superior cultivators would flock here, answering his call. When their thoughts turned to this, many in Taishan region were very much looking forward to the future. No need for the formalities. Lord Taishan waved his hand. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. On Taishan Mountain, with the defeat of old Demon Luo, there would be no more trouble, and everyone was feeling relaxed. On Taishan Mountain, with the defeat of old Demon Luo, there would be no more trouble, and everyone was feeling relaxed. Lord Taishan looked at the crowd and said, Today, Taishan Mountain is honored by the arrival of so many people in the upper heavens realm. However, as I still need to continue my retreat and cultivate for some time, I'm afraid I won't have time to spend with all of you. Soon, my disciples will entertain our guests in my stead. Upon hearing Lord Taishuan's words, everyone looked a bit tense. It seemed that Lord Taishan had not completely finished his breakthrough. Before, he had been forced out of retreat by old Demon Luo, and had to come out to fight him. Now that old Demon Luo had taken the cultivators of the divine capital of Shilling away, Lord Taishan was ready to continue his cultivation in solitude. Everyone nodded to demonstrate their agreement. They had come here to see if Lord Taishan could step foot into another level. At such a crucial state, Lord Taishan was unlikely to spend time relaxing. My lord's retreat is an important matter. What happened before was nerve-wracking, but fortunately, my lord's swordsmanship defeated old Demon Luo. However, this exposed the weaknesses of Taishan Mountain's defense. My lord did not accept disciples for a long time. And if I'm to be honest, the disciples on Taishan Mountain nowadays leave much to be desired in their cultivation. At this time, a voice spoke up. The cultivators of Taishan Mountain were greatly embarrassed upon hearing those words. But they also knew that what the other said was true. Taishan Mountain had been neglecting the cultivation of its disciples. The person who spoke was a divine general from Golden Divine Nation, whose momentum was magnificent and super powerful. Everyone was puzzled as to why he was saying this now. Lord Taishan looked at him, waiting for the other to continue. My lord's cultivation is now matchless, and a clan and school ought to be established, the divine general continued. Everyone continued to pay attention to him. Some divine general from the Golden Divine Nation actually took the initiative to persuade Lord Taishan to establish a clan and school. With Lord Taishuan's strength, if he retreated for a period of time, his cultivation might reach a terrifying level. Once a clan and school were established in time, a new superpower would be born in the upper heavens realm. To the Golden Divine Nation, this was not a particularly beneficial situation. Otherwise, old Demon Luo would not have paid such a heavy price to stop Lord Taishuan's breakthrough. Of course, in this midst of all this, there was also their personal grudges. But the Golden Divine Nation had no reason to persuade Lord Taishian to establish his own school and set up his own clan, unless there were some ulterior motives. Gai Shirshir, the prince of our divine nation, received the inheritance of the overlord, but has not yet met a worthy teacher. Previously, there were plans of sending him to Shangxiao Divine Palace to cultivate for a while, but it so happened that my lord made a breakthrough. If my lord wishes, he might accept him as a disciple and allow his highness to cultivate under my lord, the divine general continued. Suddenly, everyone understood his plan. Now that Lord Taishian was about to enter another level, if the prince of the divine nation could become his disciple, it would indeed be a win-win situation for both parties. The Golden Divine Nation had been bestowed its power by Donghuang the Great. Its background was profound, and it was absolutely a force in its own right at the peak of the higher heavens realm. Lord Taishian had extensive knowledge of many things, and knew much about the past and present. If he were to ally with the Golden Divine Nation, it would definitely be of great benefit to Taishian Mountain. As long as Lord Taishian desired to establish a clan and school, the Golden Divine Nation could be of service. Furthermore, it would be of great significance if he accepted Gai Shirshir as his disciple. Gai Shirshir was also quite renowned. His talents were extraordinary. It was rumored that the inheritance of the Golden Divine Nation had gone on for 10 generations. Hence the meaning of his nation, more powerful than 10 generations. It was an extremely arrogant name. He did not disappoint his elders, and there was indeed a powerful temperament about him. If it wasn't for a few older brothers, whose cultivations were higher, he would probably have already been named the crown prince of the Golden Divine Nation. The master has not accepted any disciples for many years. It would be a happy event if he made an exception and accepted Gai Shirshir as his disciple. Some thought. They looked toward Lord Taishian, wondering if he would make such an exception today. Even Lord Taishuan's 4 disciples looked at their master. Over the years, the Taishian Hierophant had advocated that their master take another disciple numerous times, but Lord Taishian never did accept a 5th person. However, the cultivators of Taishian Mountain wore an odd look. They were a little displeased. Never mind that the other had bluntly stated that there were no decent cultivators on Taishian Mountain, but in the matter of the 5th disciple, all the cultivators at Taishian Mountain had been waiting for such an opportunity. Now that the other wanted to skip everyone, it was naturally a cause for embarrassment for the cultivators of Taishian Mountain. But the one thing they had to admit was that Gai Shirshir's aura was much more dazzling than any of theirs. He was indeed more suitable than anyone else to become the 5th disciple of Lord Taishian, after he broke through the shackles of the realm. Lord Taishian glanced at Gai Shirshir, who stood next to the divine general of the Golden Divine Nation. He saw the peerless mettle of this young man. The golden robe on his body fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes were also golden, and from them was terrible divine light that exuded extreme sharpness. One could even vaguely feel the majestic breath inside his body. With just one glance, Gai Shirshir's outstanding talent was apparent to all. Everyone felt the sharpness he exuded, young and gallant, and his aura was just like his name. I assume you all know that I once said I would not accept any more disciples. Even now, I will not break this promise. The prince is outstanding and peerless, and he does not need to worry about not finding a suitable teacher, Lord Taishian responded, making everyone on Taishian Mountain feel a sense of pity. It seemed that Lord Taishian really wouldn't accept any more disciples if he was now refusing someone as exceptional as Gai Shirshir. I heard about my lord's vow at the time, but now that the talent on Taishian Mountain is dwindling, giving way to the disciples of divine capital of Xiling to do whatever they want, my lord need not insist upon those words of the past. The divine general of the Golden Divine Nation continued. The disciples of Taishian Mountain all revealed a strange expression. They were so bluntly demeaned by outsiders, which embarrassed them. If it were not for that mysterious character, who struck just now, they would have been defeated. Disciples of Taishian Mountain are not entirely as useless as Elder has described, a voice said. It was Jun Mu, the disciple of the Taishian Hierophant. Before that, his master had wanted to send him to Lord Taishian to cultivate, but Lord Taishian did not agree to that either. Now the people of the Golden Divine Nation were being so blatantly disrespectful, so he felt greatly displeased. The Divine General glanced over. At the same time, Gai Shishir, who was next to him, also looked at Junmu. Those eyes emitted a divine golden light that were able to penetrate through everything. Junmu felt a sharp pain in his eyes. Everywhere he shot his gaze, there was a towering golden beam, which made his eyes feel very uncomfortable. Luo Yuming, the son of old demon Luo, couldn't bear the power of my halberd, Gai Shishir said lightly, slight contempt in his eyes. Previously, in battle with Junmu and Luo Yuming, they were suppressed, and now he dared to claim that Luo Yuming could not bear the power of his halberd. But Luo Yuming's reputation in the higher heavens realm was indeed quite a bit behind Gai Shishir's. Although the cultivators on Taishan Mountain are not as talented, didn't you see that there was a sword that repelled everyone? Lord Taishan said with a smile. Everyone was surprised. It seemed that it was a swordsman of the Saint Plain on Taishan Mountain. But just who was it? Whose swordsmanship was so advanced? Could it be that the Sword Abyss had disciples with hidden strength? Luoyue wanted the most to know who it was. Before, the other had borrowed her sword, which made it look like she was the one in control of the sword. When had the Sword Abyss have such a powerful person? This youngster is pretty good. Who is it? The Palace Lord of the Divine Music Palace asked. To be able to resonate with the character of the Way, and use the will of the Way in the character to form a sword, and unleash the second level of the fleeting divine sword was indeed commendable. His perception of the Way was bound to be extremely strong, and his talent must be unmeasurable. He didn't want anyone to know, so the Palace Lord need not pursue it further. Lord Taishan smiled. Probably, only he, as the one who had engraved the character of the Way, and who was one with the character, would know who it was that used his will to ignite the will of the Way. Others could not connect with the character of the Way, so they couldn't perceive it. A strange look flashed across Gai Shishir's eyes. It seemed that Lord Taishan greatly valued the mysterious disciple who didn't reveal himself. Could that be the reason Lord Taishan refused him as a disciple? No matter how strong the opponent was, how strong could they really be? Futian watched all this and took everything in. Gai Shishir must be a tyrannical character. He was the prince of the Golden Divine Nation, whose name was arrogant and unparalleled. He was also somewhat surprised. He didn't expect Lord Taishan to conceal the truth for him, and did not expose him. What happened today attracted Lord Taishuan's personal attention. In fact, exposure had a limited impact on him, but Lord Taishan still respected his choice. Very well, I should get back to cultivating. Anyone who comes to Taishan Mountain can meditate with me here. But if someone else is looking for trouble again, don't be upset if I don't react well to it. Lord Taishuan's tone suddenly became harsher. He said to the Taishan Hierophant, "Take care of our guests." "Yes, master." The Taishan Hierophant nodded and saw the master walk forward. As he raised his hand and waved, suddenly, an ancient peak appeared out of thin air, rising from the ground. He waved again, and Taishan Palace appeared. He took a step and walked into it, sitting there. He was one with the character of the Way, comprehending and cultivating. In an instant, heaven and earth changed color, and the will of the Way roiled toward the endless void, flowing into the distance. Many looked yonder with a solemn look. Lord Taishan was using that character to perceive the world. The Palace Lord of the Divine Music Palace did not leave. Neither did the cultivators of the Golden Divine Nation, or the representatives of many top principalities. They were all standing there and watching. Even if it was only observing Lord Taishan cultivate, they could still gain some insight from it. As for those youngsters, the impact on them was even greater. That character of the Way alone was enough for them to meditate. It seems that our Lord will really be stepping into another level. Many people thought as they looked over there, preparing to witness this event together. On Taishan Mountain, Futian came to the crowd as he looked in the direction of Lord Taishan. He was now closer than he was at String Pavilion, and could see everything more clearly. It just so happened that Luoyue was standing next to him. She glanced at Futian, who had come to her side, and said, "How come I didn't see you before?" "I was cultivating at the String Pavilion," Futian replied. Luoyue's tone indicated some displeasure. But when she thought that Yi Futian was just of the unblemished plain, Luoyue thought that she did not need to get angry with him about his failure to participate in the battle. Instead, she said, "This character contains the true will of the great path. You must take care to meditate with it." Yi Futian nodded slightly. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." On the top of Taishan Mountain, Lord Taishan sat above the palace, bathed in the divine light of the great path. On the top of Taishan Mountain, Lord Taishan sat above the palace, bathed in the divine light of the great path. His body seemed to be connected with the 9 heavens. Above the endless void, the will of the way entered the body and created a certain wondrous resonance with it. And that character of the way likewise also bloomed in endless radiance, connecting the boundless vast area, covering the entire Taishan region. Anyone within Taishan region, even if they were hundreds of thousands of miles apart, could still feel the impact Lord Taishan had on breaking into the realm. Such an extraordinary state was enough to make countless many yearn and dream. Even those who had already proved the existence of Renhuang were still looking solemn, gazing in the direction of Taishan Mountain. When this step was crossed, Lord Taishan would be a giant figure standing at the peak of the higher heavens realm, and even beyond the higher heavens realm, he would probably be the very top of all of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. There were still many preeminent characters in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, but those who had taken this step were probably the minority. Yi Futian did not know how many such old monsters still existed in the higher heavens realm, but according to what he knew, in the heavenly mandate realm where he was, only Gu Tianxing was at that level. The old overlord of the heavenly mandate dynasty may have been another, but after the destruction inflicted by both sides, there may be no one left at this level at the heavenly mandate realm. Of course, if there were the existence of hidden masters, that was beyond his knowledge. Therefore, he clearly understood the significance of Lord Taishuan's breakthrough. Not only did he understand it, but everyone else understood as well. Otherwise, old demon Luo of divine capital of Xiling would not have attacked and tried to forcibly interrupt Lord Taishan, even wanting to wound him. The powerful golden divine nation even wanted to have their most outstanding prince, Gai Shishir, to be his disciple. From this, one could understand the significance. The palace lord of divine music palace did not leave. Neither did the divine generals of the golden divine nation. All the other top principalities were all in attendance, watching Lord Taishan impacting the realm. It seemed as if it was some great attraction to them. In fact, not only them, but as time passed, more and more prominent characters had arrived, except that they did not show themselves. Some were covered by thousands of miles of divine will, and some were around Taishan Mountain or inside Taishan City. It would not be an overstatement to say that the breakthrough this time was a highly anticipated event in all of the upper heavens realm. The light of the character of the way was getting more brilliant, and its will was getting stronger. Yi Futian sat cross-legged, and like many disciples of Taishan Mountain, he was quietly comprehending and cultivating, as Lord Taishuan's breakthrough was another kind of teaching. Such opportunity was pure luck, could not be sought out. It all depended on themselves how much one could comprehend. Yi Futian's will blended with the character of the way, wandering between heaven and earth. He felt the power of creation in heaven and earth, as well as the omnipresent way. Gradually, Yi Futian gave way to a very strong sensation, allowing him to control the way more freely. This sensation of freedom was extremely gratifying. It was as if no matter the distance, he was still able to exert control. In a blink of an eye, many days had passed, but the people on Taishan Mountain seemed to have forgotten the time. Many woke up from cultivation and looked at Lord Taishan. Had there still been no breakthrough? Now the divine light had reached the 9 heavens, and the way flowed between heaven and earth. Even so, Lord Taishan seemed to have not yet reached the limit needed to break through. All 4 disciples of Lord Taishan were guarding and protecting his surroundings, preventing anyone from interfering with Lord Taishuan's cultivation. It seems that this realm is hard. Not far from Yi Futian, Wan Shuyi looked at Lord Taishan, frowning, as if worried for him. As a disciple of Sword Abyss, of course, he wanted Lord Taishian to break through. However, it seemed extremely difficult to break through this realm. Old Demon Luo dared to venture here and disturb the Grandmaster because he knew that this realm would not be easy to get through. He didn't expect that the Grandmaster had already transformed before the actual breakthrough, being able to defeat him with a single blow. Luoiwa glanced over with a solemn look on her face. Although it is difficult, I believe the Grandmaster can do it. Well, it'll take 1,000 years to form one sword. Lord Taishian did not establish a clan or school, and he was rarely involved in external disputes, all to maintain a peaceful state of mind. He is a true and pure cultivator. Wan Shui also nodded in response. Senior brother, on Taishian Mountain, are there swordsmen with tremendous sword technique? Luoiwa seemed to have thought of something and asked Wan Shui. You are asking about those from before, right? Wan Shui instinctively understood her intention, but shook his head. I cultivate in Sword Abyss, and I'm pretty confident in my swordsmanship. My cultivation of the second level of the fleeting divine sword is incredibly skilled. However, when that sword appeared, I realized I was but a frog at the bottom of a well. The man who controlled the sword has skills that far surpass mine. But in daily practice in the Sword Abyss, I was unaware of the existence of such a swordsman, and have no idea who it was that concealed their true strength. Senior brother, do you think it's possible? Luoiwa suddenly said to Wan Shui. Impossible, Wan Shui said decisively. If so, would Lord Taishian deliberately elevate the disciples of Taishian Mountain? Lord Taishian had already said that it was a disciple of Saint Plain from Taishian Mountain, so it must have been so. I'm being silly, Luoiwa said. She felt that she was indeed a little crazy. Because of the power and mystery of that sword, she had wild thoughts, to the point that she was even questioning the words of Lord Taishian. But as soon Wan Shui said that, she didn't think about it anymore. There probably were some disciples with hidden strengths in the Sword Abyss. At this moment, a breath of terror flowed about. Above the 9 heavens, countless divine light of the great path fell in the direction where Lord Taishian was. It penetrated his body so that his entirety was radiant. It was as if he was on the verge of transforming into a divine body. The mighty holy pressure was now overwhelming the space. Lord Taishuan's eyes suddenly opened, and he looked toward the sky. This look seemed to have penetrated the boundless void, looking beyond this world. The heavenly path is incomplete, an ephemeral voice said, which seemed to contain endless sigh. It was as if the gods were sighing. This mournful sound made countless people felt a deep sense of sorrow. It was as if they were involuntarily affected by it. Such influence was astonishing. Just the voice alone was enough to affect everyone. The heavenly path was incomplete. Those preeminent characters also looked up at the sky, for they also knew that the heavenly path was incomplete. At the peak of Taishian Mountain, Lord Taishian took out a guqin and plucked at the strings with his fingers. In an instant, the sound of music penetrated the endless void along with the great path, and fell into countless people's ears. The melody was like the sound of the great path. When the music started, many felt a sadness, a mood that seemed to speak of endless regrets. The lost sound of the great path, the song of lost divine. The eyes of the palace lord of divine music palace instantly became extremely sharp, as if penetrating the void. He looked toward Lord Taishian, as if to watch every move Lord Taishian made. He listened to each musical note to brand them into his mind. Listen carefully, he said to several disciples from Shangxiao Divine Palace who were next to him. The lost sound of the great path. The song of lost divine was one of the 10 divine melodies. It was known as the true divine sound of the great path. It was rumored that the epitome of sword technique at Taishian Mountain, the fleeting divine sword, was created by combining the song of the lost divine and swordsmanship. Now Lord Taishian was playing the song of lost divine upon Taishian Mountain. Even though he was the palace lord of divine music palace, he wanted to brand the entire melody in his memory. At this moment, Futian also looked very grave. He sat cross-legged, and his eyes became endlessly deep. His entire person entered an extremely curious state. It was as if he had completely forgotten about himself, and had become ethereal, immersed in the sound of the music. This melody carried with it endless regret and sadness. It seemed to be describing the sorrow of cultivation. After cultivating for a lifetime, he had no choice but to refuse the way, desolate and filled with pain. There were also regrets. Upon hearing this music, many cultivators, who were not determined enough, now sensed a strong pessimism. At this moment, they seemed to want to put down all that they had worked for, and completely forget about their cultivation. Even as the will of the way reversed, the breath inside their bodies became disorderly, and moved out of their control. Soon, some people's eyes became bloody red. It was as if they were in a trance, entering an uncontrollable state. Some even started damaging their own foundations. Don't be affected by the music, someone alerted the others. Futian also shared the same feeling as the breath in his body became jumbled. What kind of existence was the composer who created this melody? The will of the great path roared wildly between heaven and earth. Accompanied by the sound of the melody, the breath inside of Lord Taishian was also roaring wildly, making booming sounds. The world was changing. The sound of Guqin soared as if to compete with the great path, disregarding fate, aiming to contend with the heavenly path. There was a long river racing between heaven and earth, which made Taishian Mountain tremble. Everyone within Taishian region felt a terrible shock. Finally, with the last note, a divine light seemed to penetrate the 9 heavens. Lord Taishian stood up. The robe on his body fluttered wildly in the wind. The will of the way beat about his body. He looked incomparably great and insufferably arrogant. At this moment, the entire Taishian region shook once. And then, all the breath between heaven and earth began to calm down. Success! The disciples of Taishian Mountain murmured and stared in that one direction. At this time, people came from all directions possessing supreme temperaments. Some were immortal, some were domineering, but there were also extraordinary empresses among them. Congratulations to Lord Taishian, a voice said. The palace lord of Divine Music Palace looked at Lord Taishian, with a very complicated look in his eyes. Congratulations. Many stepped into the void and paid their respects to Taishian Palace. Everyone who arrived was a great, powerful existence in the higher heavens realm. When the people of Taishian Mountain saw what they were doing, they were extremely moved. Did he succeed? Congratulations to the Lord. The disciples of Taishian Mountain bowed down to worship him. The divine general of the Golden Divine Nation looked in the direction of Lord Taishian. His eyes were a little complicated. Lord Taishian had actually achieved this step. And from this moment on, he was no longer qualified to talk to Lord Taishian as an equal, but must respectfully refer to him as an elder. Beside him, Gai Shishir's eyes emitted divine golden light. Had he made the breakthrough? Futian watched all this quietly. He looked towards Lord Taishian. From this day forward, Lord Taishuan's status in the higher heavens realm leaped again, and he now stood at the pinnacle of giants. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Lord Taishian didn't seem to be too joyful. Instead, he took a look at the sky and sighed. Lord Taishian didn't seem to be too joyful. Instead, he took a look at the sky and sighed. The heavenly path was incomplete. Turning his gaze to everyone, Lord Taishian held his hands up and thanked them. You are all too kind. Afterward, he came to the crowd, and the 4 great disciples led by the Taishian Hierophant came behind him. They finally let go of their worries. Now they would not be worried about someone making trouble, and no one dared to try. Even that old demon Luo of the divine capital of Xiling would have to be more cautious when he met Lord Taishian in the future. If Lord Taishian intended to settle matters of the past, that old demon would lose. Today Lord Taishian comprehended the way on Taishian Mountain. It is a major event for cultivators in the higher heavens realms, the palace lord of the Divine Music Palace said. Many cultivators nodded in agreement. The influence of a top character was very great. Just a few more years of cultivation than any of you. Lord Taishian appeared very calm. One cannot surpass this realm with time alone. The palace lord of the Divine Music Palace shook his head and said, On behalf of Shangxiao Divine Palace, we congratulate you, my lord. After bringing back such great news, I believe that all people in various palaces will also be overjoyed for my lord. Palace Lord is too kind. Please give my regards to everyone when you return. If there is ever a chance, I will pay you a visit. Lord Taishian responded politely. If my lord ever wants to come to the Divine Music Palace, there will soon be a chance. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace smiled and said, everyone in the Divine Music Palace must be looking forward to talking with my lord. Lord Taishian seemed to think of something when he heard the words of the Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace. He smiled and knew what the other meant. Many powerful figures on Taishian Mountain thought of one thing when they heard his words. Someone said with a smile, 10 years have gone by in the blink of an eye, and it is time for the opportunity of trials once more. It is indeed a blessing to all young cultivators in the higher heavens realm. Shangxiao Divine Palace preached to the world, benefiting the world of cultivation, and doing great deeds. Lord Taishian nodded and said, Shangxiao Divine Palace was indeed a place worthy of admiration. Shangxiao Divine Palace is a treasured land within the higher heavens realm, which can nurture the great path. For many years, it has adhered to its mission of preaching as a matter of course. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace replied. It was well known to everyone in the higher heavens realm that Shangxiao Divine Palace was located in the most treasured holy land in all of higher heavens realm, and had trained many powerful great characters. Therefore, for many years, it had been preaching to the world, never getting involved in disputes. Of course, if it were not so, many of the top principalities in the higher heavens realm would have long been rifted with malice, and Shangxiao Divine Palace would not have occupied such a lofty status. It's a pity that the fruit grown in the Divine Palace is limited. Otherwise, it could help more people to comprehend the way. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace continued. My lord has not yet established a clan. So in the years past, Taishian Mountain had just a quota of 5 spaces. But now that my lord has had a breakthrough, I will discuss with other palace lords when I return about increasing the number of places for Taishian Mountain to 15 people. Many thanks. Lord Taishian nodded with a smile. He glanced at the disciples of Taishian Mountain behind him. Although 15 spaces were still far from enough compared to the disciples who cultivated on Taishian Mountain, considering those who had a real chance to break through into Runhuang Plain, 15 spaces were a lot. It was definitely enough. After all, it was not that easy to become a Runhuang. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace is biased. Why not add some more spaces for us? Said a powerful person next to him. If everyone could be like my lord, then there would be no problem. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace said with a smile. Suddenly, everyone revealed a dull expression. Could one break through the realm, just because one wanted to? Would this kind of character be so rare in the higher heavens realm? Never mind in the higher heavens realm. Even in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, there were not many. Very well. Now that my lord has broken through, this matter is over, and we should be getting back. After everyone gets back, you can discuss the matter regarding the candidates. Now we should get ready to go. The Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace smiled and said, when my lord has free time, please come to the Divine Palace to sit and chat. Good. Lord Taishian nodded. Farewell. The Place Lord of Divine Music Palace put his hands together, and then left with his people. We should be getting back too. Goodbye. All the cultivators saluted and left as well. Lord Taishian watched them as they left. The Divine General from the Golden Divine Nation stepped forward and asked, won't you consider our previous proposition? I already said that I would not accept any more disciples. Lord Taishian shook his head. The other nodded and took Gai Shir and turned to leave. Other cultivators of the Golden Divine Nation also left with them. The Golden Divine Light opened up the road of Great Path, and soon, they disappeared between heaven and earth. People of the Divine Nation are really too proud. Lord Taishian whispered as he watched those who were leaving. The Golden Divine Nation claimed to be the descendant of the ancient Golden God. It had some connection with the Great Emperor, and enjoyed great prosperity in the past. If it were not for the Master's breakthrough, they would probably not have taken Gai Shir to us, said the Taishian Hierophant. Lord Taishian said nothing more. As the crowd gradually left, there were fewer and fewer people on Taishan Mountain, and the cultivators of the Taishan region also bowed and left. With this matter over, they had no more reason to linger there. After a while, Taishan Mountain seemed to have returned to its former tranquility. Not many people were still there, save for the disciples of Taishan Mountain. At this time, the disciples of Taishan Mountain were still focused on Lord Taishan. Even at this moment, they had not completely calmed their minds. Lord Taishan was already someone at the peak. He had now gone one step further. With so many powerful figures in the higher heavens realm congratulating him, they could very clearly feel Lord Taishuan's current status, which was now truly beyond this world. Even the Palace Lord of Divine Music Palace was extremely polite and invited Lord Taishan to lecture at Shangxiao Divine Palace. Furthermore, 10 more spaces were given to them. With this in mind, many disciples in Taishan Mountain could not hide the anticipation in their eyes, especially those whose cultivation was already in the nirvana plane. For them, this was an extremely rare opportunity that happened only once every 10 years. In the higher heavens realm, only the Divine Palace could provide such an opportunity. All the top figures of all principalities in the higher heavens realm would head over to the Divine Palace to prove themselves. However, even with 15 spaces, it was perhaps still not enough. Besides the disciples cultivating on Taishan Mountain, Lord Taishuan's 4 disciples each also had their own disciples to consider. In addition, some elders on Taishan Mountain also had descendants of their own. Lord Taishan looked at everyone in the crowd and saw in their eyes that revealed their admiration, worship, and expectations. In addition, a few people also felt lost, clearly realizing that they had no chance. Lord Taishan could read everyone's thoughts with one glance. He said, "You must have heard the words of the Palace Lord of the Divine Music Palace at Shangxiao Divine Palace. Soon, there will be the once-in-a-decade opportunity at Shangxiao Divine Palace, which is mainly focused on those at the pinnacle of the Saint Plane. So there is an opportunity to enter the Renhuang Plane. Of course, it is only an opportunity. The key to success is still your own talent, perception, and state of mind." Everyone listened attentively. This was something they knew. The Divine Palace is the first holy place for cultivation in the higher heavens realm, rumored to be able to forge the basis of Renhuang. For cultivators, it is indeed valuable. This time, the Divine Palace gave Taishan Mountain 10 more spaces, all because the Grandmaster broke through. Other top forces only have 10 spaces in total. Jun Mu, a disciple of the Taishan Hierophant, spoke. Lord Taishan nodded. The top forces in the higher heavens realm received 10 spaces in 10 years. They had never established a clan nor opened a school. They used to have only 5 spaces, but this time, they were given 10 more for a total of 15. So 15 spaces. 5 spaces for the cultivators of Taishan Mountain. You 4 may each choose 2 disciples, so 2 places each. How about that? Lord Taishan said to everyone. His 4 disciples would get 2 spaces each, and cultivators of Taishan Mountain would get 5 spaces, which was considered evenly distributed. Everyone nodded and didn't have any qualms. Lord Taishuan's suggestion was relatively fair, and he took care of the needs of both sides. What about the other 2? The Taishan Hierophant asked. 5 plus 8 only accounted for 13 spaces. I have other plans for them, Lord Taishan responded. The Taishan Hierophant nodded and said nothing more. Since Lord Taishan had other plans, there was nothing else for them to comment on. Yi Futian had been listening quietly, without speaking, because there was no room of him to speak here. But he was slightly moved when he heard that Lord Taishan had left 2 spaces. Could it be that Lord Taishan was leaving one of the 2 spaces to him? Moreover, this time it was heading toward Shangxiao Divine Palace, which was where Yi Tianyu cultivated. Not long ago, at the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, he had also had some conflicts with the disciples there. However, he had heard that the Divine Palace did not actually get involved in the battles of the disciples outside, as it was just a place of cultivation. Now it seemed that the rumor was true, because whether or not there were people such as Yi Tianyu, it didn't really matter. However, it did not matter if he thought too much of it. It was very pleasant to cultivate on Taishan Mountain, and he was making great progress these days. Well, you may all go and prepare your own candidates, Lord Taishian said, and then turned to leave. After Lord Taishian left, many were talking about it. Let's go back to Sword Abyss, Wan Shui said. Senior brother, one should be able to get a space, Luoyue whispered. Wan Shui was extremely talented, and there must be a space for him. I'll do my best, Wan Shui said frankly, not being humble. This was an extremely rare opportunity. I hope I can go to the trial with you. Luoyue was the daughter of the city lord of Taishian City, so naturally, there would be a space for her. Yi Futian was also on his way back, ready to return to String Pavilion. Shenjing, Wan Shui shouted. Yi Futian looked back at him. Soon there will probably be some discussion at Taishian Muten, and same with Sword Abyss. You can come around from time to time to help you comprehend swordsmanship, Wan Shui advised Yi Futian, kind of watching out for him. It is indeed a rare opportunity. Luoyue looked at Yi Futian and nodded in agreement. This time, the final selection would inevitably result in some competition. By observing the battle, Yi Futian could also make some progress. Sure, I will definitely go. Yi Futian nodded with a smile and responded. Well, then you go back now, Wan Shui said. And so, Yi Futian bid his goodbye and went toward the String Pavilion. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Soon after, a grand forum battle was held on Taishian Mountain. The selections for the 4 great disciples of Lord Taishian was easy, as they each had a quota of 2 spaces and could decide themselves. Soon after, a grand forum battle was held on Taishian Mountain. The selections for the 4 great disciples of Lord Taishian was easy, as they each had a quota of 2 spaces and could decide themselves. But since there were 5 spaces for all the cultivators on Taishian Mountain, a competition was essential for deciding on those candidates. As a result, there were exciting battles one after the other, until eventually, 5 candidates were chosen to be sent to Shangxiao Divine Palace. But for the 4 great disciples, such as the Taishian Hierophant, the matter was settled internally, with each deciding on their own candidates without participating in those competitions. Many were curious about who would be filling the remaining 2 spaces, which had been reserved by Lord Taishian himself. Yi Futian had been cultivating in the String Pavilion. On the day that Lord Taishian broke through, he had been on the side comprehending, and had received many insights, which he needed time to fully digest. This included the divine melody of the Great Path, and the Song of the Lost Divine, which also took him a long time to understand. He had tried to play the song, but had only made small progress. On this day, Yi Futian was still cultivating in the String Pavilion, and a fiery red shadow descended before him, calling out, Shengjing. Do you have any manners? Yi Futian was a little speechless. This little phoenix was so comfortable with herself, and interrupted him so blatantly. I don't, Feng Yin said without a care. Shenjing, you must have heard about what's happening on Taishian Mountain. Shangxiao Divine Palace gave Taishian Mountain 15 spaces. So 15 people can go there to seek the opportunity of the Great Path. This is the chance to become a Renhuang. I heard that, but you have just entered the Nirvana plane. The realm of the Demon Emperor has nothing to do with you for the time being, Yi Futian said bluntly. How do you know that I have a space? Feng Yin looked at Yi Futian and said with a smile. It seems that you also know that my talent is unparalleled, and that I will undoubtedly be selected by Lord Taishian. This is an opportunity that comes only once in 10 years, and countless people would like to be selected but won't be. I heard from my mom and dad that many powerful Renhuang were willing to make great sacrifices in order to get a place just because this opportunity is rare. So are you jealous? Yi Futian was able to ascertain that this little girl had come to show off. Jealous? Yi Futian was quite speechless. The parents of the little phoenix enjoyed a great relationship with the String Emperor. They may be String Emperor's demonic beast partners. When little Phoenix was born, she received the blessing of Lord Taishian, and was also a natural-born saint, so it was no surprise that Lord Taishian would give her a space. Hypocrite, little Phoenix said. Yi Futian was a little speechless. Little Phoenix showed a smug look and laughed. However, you must wish you were me. Read more chapter on novelful, yes I do. Yi Futian smiled and shook his head. At this time, footsteps were heard. Young friend Shenjing. A voice was heard, and Yi Futian looked forward and said, Elder Lan. His voice fell, and Yi Futian saw a figure walking in their direction. He came to Yi Futian and Little Phoenix. It was Uncle Lan, the housekeeper of Taishan Mountain. Feng Yin is there too, Uncle Lan said with a smile. Feng Yin nodded. Why are you here, Uncle Lan? I'm looking for Shenjing. Uncle Lan looked at Shenjing and said with a smile, you should know everything that's happening at Taishan Mountain. Lord Taishan wanted to give a space to me, but what use do I have for it at my age? So I'm giving it to you. Yi Futian was surprised. He was not too surprised that he would get a space, but that Uncle Lan came and gave it to him was a shock. But who told Uncle Lan to do so? Yi Futian thought that perhaps it was Lord Taishuan's instruction. Lord Taishan wanted to avoid being too obvious, so maybe he had asked Uncle Lan to inform him? After all, Lord Taishan deliberately concealed what had happened last time and did not expose him. Uncle Lan, you are giving him your space? Little Phoenix showed a strange expression when she heard what Uncle Lan said. This meant that Shenjing also got a space? Yes. Uncle Lan nodded. Yi Futian smiled and did not decline his offer. He bowed slightly to Uncle Lan and said, Many thanks to you, Elder. Miss Four sent you up here. I saw that your appearance and manner were extraordinary. There must be a bright future for you. Uncle Lan said with a smile. Come on. They are already there discussing the matter. I will go with you too. Very well. Yi Futian nodded and left with Little Phoenix and Uncle Lan. Little Phoenix looked strange all along the way, murmuring, and seemed a little puzzled. Not long ago, she was showing off to Yi Futian, and now it turned out that Yi Futian also got a spot. Could it be that Lord Taishan knew? This guy hid a lot deep inside, but Lord Taishan was all-knowing, so there was still a possibility that he may know. As they came to Taishan Palace, many people had already gathered here, and many of them were familiar faces to Yi Futian. They turned around, and when they saw Yi Futian, they all looked rather surprised. Uncle Lan. Everyone bowed to Uncle Lan slightly, and Uncle Lan smiled and nodded. Luoyue directed her gaze toward Yi Futian and asked, Shenjing, why are you here? As the daughter of the city lord of Taishan City, she clearly occupied a space. Like Miss Luoyue, he will also head to Shangxiao Divine Palace, Uncle Lan said with a smile, and his words astounded everyone. Shenjing was also going to Shangxiao Divine Palace? Uncle Lan, are you joking? Luoyue didn't quite believe it. Out of the two spaces reserved by Lord Taishan, the one given to Feng Yin was easily understood, but the other one was given to Shenjing? Would I dare joke with Miss Luoyue? It was I who led Shenjing to Taishan Mountain and placed him at the String Pavilion. Since then, Shenjing has taken good care of the String Pavilion. I will not use the space that Lord Taishan gave me, so I gave it to Shenjing instead, Uncle Lan said with a smile. Taking good care of the String Pavilion? Everyone looked a little spasmodic. Was this even a reason? Uncle Lan was clearly making up an excuse for giving Shenjing his spot. It was said that Uncle Lan had a great relationship with the String Emperor and the housemaster of Taishan, and Shenjing was also sent here by the housemaster of Taishan. He was placed in the String Pavilion, and it meant that he had some connection with the third and fourth disciples of Lord Taishan. Could it be that Uncle Lan favored him because of this? Doesn't Uncle Lan also have disciples? Luoyue said, Those few disciples of mine will be useless there. It is best to give it to a suitable person, Uncle Lan said quite casually. Although our friend Shenjing was sent here by Miss Four, and even though he may be extremely talented, he is just an unblemished saint. Such an opportunity bestowed on someone of unblemished realm is giving them too much face, someone said. If Luoyue had been expressing her doubts, this person was now instigating. This speaker was precisely the disciple of Taishan Hierophant Junmu. He had also been selected, and would be going to Shangxiao Divine Palace. Yi Futian looked up to Junmu. He seemed to feel his gaze. Junmu's expression was still relaxed as he nodded to Yi Futian apologetically, saying, Please excuse me, Brother Xinjing, I'm not deliberately opposing you. It is just that this trip to the Shangxiao Divine Palace is to seek the path of the doctrine. Brother Xinjing has great talent, but the realm is still a bit off. Only those of the Nirvana plane will exert the greatest influence. It is really not suitable for you to go. It's really unsuitable, several people agreed. They also felt that it was a complete waste of a space given Xinjing's realm. This was an opportunity to test the Runhuang realm. And even if the probability of success was extremely low, it was still an opportunity. Futian did not know how to rebuke Jun Mu's words so quickly. But I'm very optimistic about Xinjing. Although his realm is a little lower and cannot impact Runhuang, it could form the basis of the fruit of the way in the body ahead of time, which would still have great benefits for cultivation in the future. One day, when the time comes, a breakthrough of the realm will be a matter of course, Uncle Lan said calmly. Since Lord Taishian is letting me do as I wish, and I chose to give it to Xinjing, what is so inappropriate about that? Jun Mu's eyes were slightly perturbed. Uncle Lan was insisting on helping Xinjing. Enough. Now that you have made your decision, there is nothing more to argue about. A voice said as a godly figure appeared above the palace. It was Lord Taishian. The 4 great disciples of his were standing next to him. Yes, I will obey. Jun Mu lowered his head and responded. Instantly, he became extremely compliant. Lord Taishian glanced at the disciples. They are exactly 15. His gaze lingered for a moment on Futian, but it was just an instant before he moved on. Since all the candidates have been chosen, you may depart. The people of other principalities must have already embarked on their journey, Lord Taishian said. Everyone nodded and didn't bother to argue about the matter. Even though they felt that the space had been wasted, with Lord Taishuan's approval, the matter was settled without further discussion. Feng Zhu, I will trouble you to take them. Lord Taishian looked into the distance. As soon as his voice fell, a burning might descended, and a gigantic figure of the demon emperor appeared. It was the father of Little Phoenix. He was a tyrannical demon emperor. Obviously this time, he came to lead the way for them. Go, and make sure to send them off before you head back, Lord Taishian ordered again. 15 people stepped onto the phoenix. With a loud chant from the phoenix, the divine bird launched toward the sky and disappeared in an instant. Thank you for escorting us, Elder. Everyone on the back of the demon emperor successively expressed their gratitude. Dad, are you also keeping an eye on me, by the way? Little Phoenix mumbled. Feng Zhu was not in the mood to deal with her, but merely sailed through the wind. Xinjing, you are a really lucky man. Wan Shuyi, who had also been selected, appeared to be in a good mood, and was feeling appreciative of everything in the outside world. Well, I must recognize all the care given to me by all the elders and the disciples of Sword Abyss. Futian nodded as he looked at the rolling sea of clouds. Shangxiao Divine Palace was such an unexpected coincidence. In the past, the cultivators of Shangxiao Divine Palace descended in Heavenly Mandate Realm, and now, as Xinjing, he was on his way to Shangxiao Divine Palace. It was unknown if he would meet those he knew or what would happen there. Tianyu was cultivating at Shangxiao Divine Palace. How was he doing? The phoenix divine bird crossed the sky and left a radiant divine light in the sea of clouds. At the same time, in all the major areas of the higher heavens realm, cultivators of all sides had set off and started on their journey to Shangxiao Divine Palace. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Shangxiao Divine Palace was located in the central district of the higher heavens realm, surrounded by the Sea of the Path. It stood in the middle of the inland fairy mountains. Shangxiao Divine Palace was located in the central district of the higher heavens realm, surrounded by the Sea of the Path. It stood in the middle of the inland fairy mountains. It was said that in the higher heavens realm, the Sea of the Path and the Fairy Mountain, where Shangxiao Divine Palace was located, were both the most precious sacred, pure lands in the higher heavens realm. These pure lands were used by the Shangxiao Divine Palace for preaching, and were the true holy lands for cultivation. To enter the Shangxiao Divine Palace, one needed to cross the Sea of the Path from Linqiao City. This big city in the central district had always been a prosperous but unclaimed land. In fact, there were many top powers fighting for hegemony in the central district, but none of them had ever touched Linxiao City. This city near the Sea of the Path was the place leading to the Shangxiao Divine Palace. Those top powers didn't dare to touch it, but they all had their own influence in Linxiao City. In the past few days, Linxiao City had been extremely busy. The decennial journey project of crossing the sea and seeking the path had been launched, and the Shangxiao Divine Palace had given quotas to many powers of the higher heavens realm. Cultivators of the top powers would cross the sea and enter the Divine Palace to seek for the path's restaurants near the Sea of the Path were already overcrowded. During these days, all the people from different realms had gathered here. When the messenger of Shangxiao Divine Palace arrived, all the warriors from different powers would start to cross the sea. The people of Taishian Mountain had also arrived. The Phoenix Demon Emperor sent the 15 cultivators of Taishian Mountain here and left. Later, they could only depend on themselves. No one else could help them. At this time, cultivators of Taishian Mountain were standing on the rooftop of a restaurant near the sea. The city was bustling, and there were sometimes warriors passing by in the void sky who could clearly feel the lively atmosphere below. At another place in the restaurant, people looked at them and whispered, "Are they cultivators of the Taishian Mountain?" Yes. Not long ago, Lord Taishian broke shackles and beat old demon Lua with one single finger, and now he must be stronger. The Divine Palace gave a quota of 15 participants to Taishian Mountain, someone said. Lord Taishian has been absorbed in cultivation for many years, and is always diligently seeking knowledge of the path, so now he can reach the apex. We should all learn from him. The people of Taishian Mountain heard this and felt proud. They could feel that the status of their lord was different from before. However, although Taishian Mountain has 15 seats, as the lord has refused to accept new disciples, the strength of the cultivators of Taishian Mountain, someone said and stopped. Many people had heard the news that the disciples of Taishian Mountain were defeated badly by warriors of the divine capital of Xiling. But then a mysterious warrior defeated the people of Xiling God capital with the Tao spell. The Divine Palace is a holy place for seeking the path, but it is not absolutely fair to everyone. The powerful forces in the higher heavens realm have quotas for seeking the path, but for those cultivators who were born into ordinary families and did not enter the top powers to cultivate, they do not have the opportunity to get quotas. Are they weaker than those selected ones? A figure of the Saint Plain drank alcohol alone and spoke, not afraid of offending people. It was probably because he had no chance to go to Fei Mountain to seek the way, so he was satisfied with complaining. Read more chapter on novel full. There are so many cultivators in the world. How could the Divine Palace be absolutely fair? Some people argued for the Divine Palace. To put it bluntly, it still depends on one's family background, that person said and smiled, taking another sip. Why were you born into an unprivileged background? Someone asked. Suddenly many people in the restaurant laughed, but all of them were just joking, and no one took it seriously. At this time, many people turned their heads and looked in a direction. In the distance, the chi of swords whistled above the void sky, and many sharp swords passed by. A group of swordsmen in training came from the sky and landed directly above the restaurant. They were all dressed in white, with keen temperaments. Many people from Linxiao City in the restaurant immediately recognized these visitors and were slightly surprised. In the central district, the Divine Swordly family was a famed family of sword art, and was also known as the strongest family of swordsmanship in the higher heavens realm. All their cultivation methods were supplemented by swordsmanship, and they had developed countless horrifying sword techniques. The disciples of the Divine Swordly family were all very outstanding. Those who were not excellent enough were not even qualified to walk outside in the name of the Divine Swordly family. The family's discipline of the younger generation was extremely strict, and could even be called harsh. Only in this way could superb swordsmen be produced from the family. In the central district, people were in awe of the Divine Swordly family. They were extremely strict with their internal disciplines, and their way of coping with external affairs was also hard and fast. They always advocated speaking with the gun. It seemed that they came for the cultivators of Taishan Mountain. We are from the Li family, and are here to see our Taoist friends from the Taishan Mountain. These visitors stepped forward and came in front of cultivators of Taishan Mountain, cupping their hands. Divine Sword Li family, Wan Shuyi whispered. The disciples of the Sword Abyss cultivated in swordsmanship, which he as the top one swordsman in the higher heaven realm, was very clear. But this was the first time they saw cultivators from the Divine Sword Li family. After all, Taishan Mountain was very far away from here. If it were not for crossing the sea to seek the path, they usually would not come here. What brings you here, my Taoist friends? Junmu said. The 15 people who came were actually the third generation of cultivators of Taishan Mountain. Junmu was the direct disciple of Lord Taishuan's chief follower Taishan Hierophant. So among the 15 cultivators, he took the lead to speak up. Presumably, he thought he was the lead, and other people would not compete with him. Now we are in the prosperous era. And since many of you came to visit us from distant places in the upper heavens realm, we Li family are half of your host. Therefore, we prepare a banquet in Wanghai restaurant, and want to invite all parties that cross the sea to seek the path here. We came to know that Taoist friends of Taishan Mountain are here, so we came to invite you. One of the visitors said very politely. Junmu looked at others of Taishan Mountain and asked, "What do you think? Since the Divine Sword Li family has invited us, we will attend the banquet for sure," Li Jin, a disciple of Taishan Mountain Guqin Valley, said. She was also an outstanding figure in Taishan Mountain, who was able to play Flight of the Phoenix pair at a considerable level. She was also among the 15 candidates. In addition to her, Chen Yu of the Guqin Valley was also selected. Wan Shuyi also nodded. Those who practiced swordsmanship naturally wanted to see the genius of the Divine Sword Li family. It was said that this marvelous genius of the generation in the Divine Sword Li family was now practicing in the palace. He was extraordinarily talented. Junmu's eyes fell on Luoyue. Luoyue nodded lightly, and when she saw that Junmu was looking at the man of the Divine Sword Li family, she said, "If that's the case, my Taoist friend, please lead the way for us." "Please," the person of Li family said. Soon, everyone rose up and flew towards the sky. Yi Futian and Feng Yan were at the end. The two stepped into the void sky and followed the crowd. Their opinions didn't seem to matter very much, and they were totally ignored by Junmu. So they just needed to follow up. Because of this, the little phoenix pouted, somewhat dissatisfied. Not just because of this, but along the way, Junmu had been ignoring their existence. They quickly arrived at the Wanghai restaurant. This was the tallest building in this area. The view from the top was excellent, and one could directly look at the sea of the path from the building. Powerful warriors were staying at each floor below, but at this time, everyone was paying attention to the top floor because several top-level disciples in the higher heaven realm were at the top. When the people of Taishan Mountain landed, a lot of people on the huge platform in the front had already entered the seating area. At a glance, they saw the people of Divine Capital of Xiling. Previously, they had a war on Taishan Mountain, so they could be said to be impressed. This time, the team of Divine Capital of Xiling was headed by Prince Luo Yuming. His eyes were cold, and his pitch-dark eyes swept toward the crowd of the Taishan Mountain. In the last battle, they defeated their opponents, but in the end, they were subdued by a mysterious swordsman in training. He believed that that swordsman in training was most likely a Renhuang figure, who pretended to be in Saint Plain to go against them. Otherwise, he would not be able to resonate with the character of Tao and trigger the fleeting swordsmanship. In addition to the warriors of Divine Capital of Xiling, the warriors of the Golden Divine Nation were also present, and Gai Shishir was sitting there. His golden eyes still looked extremely keen, and the beams shooting from his eyes were like golden sharp swords. In addition, there was another group of guests, each with extraordinary temperament. The disciples of Taishan Mountain had never seen them before, but they suspected that they should belong to one of the other two top forces in the central district. However, it was said that the Divine Sword Li family and the Sky-Burying God clan had a deep grudge, so they should be another top force, the Changfeng family. The origin of the Changfeng family was also very unusual. It could date back to the ancient Changfeng country that dominated the central district many years ago. So to say, they were descendants of the ancient country, the overlords in the past. One could imagine how strong they were. It seems that we are the last to arrive, Junmu said self-mockingly. Yi Futian was standing behind the crowd. The atmosphere of Wanghai restaurant made him feel a little uncomfortable and slightly depressed. The people here were all the top-ranking figures of the young generation, and had an aura around them. The invisible pressure they exerted over others was very unsettling. But many people below this floor were very excited. A lot of them also came from big forces. But the people on the top were the descendants of the uppermost forces, and naturally attracted more attention. Your lord broke the shackles, so the divine palace gave you a quota of 15 candidates. You dared to accept them? Aren't you ashamed? What is the point of you coming here? A cold voice came out, and the speaker was Luo Yuming. Obviously, he showed contempt for the cultivators of Taishan Mountain because of the previous battle. How is old demon Luo's injury? Junmu looked at Luo Yuming and countered. Luo Yuming put down the wine glass, and a mark appeared directly on the table. Rays of death surrounded his palm, which looked extremely depressing. He smiled and said, "There was none of your lord's blessing on the way of seeking the path in the divine palace. After you entered the sea of the path, you can only depend on yourself. You'd better think it carefully, and then decide whether you should enter the sea of the path." The people of Taishan Mountain heard Luo Yuming's threat, and were anxious. Was he implying that he wanted to hurt them after entering the sea of the path? "Thank you for reminding us, but there is no need for you to bother," Junmu replied. "You are the guests, please come and sit down," a voice in the front said. The speaker was wearing a white gown, with sharp temperament. He was the peerless talent of swordsmanship in the divine swordly family Li Sun. "Thanks a lot," Junmu replied and then found a place to sit down. A slight unpleasant look showed on his face. "You may enter the sea of the path at any time. And now let's just have a drink with peace of mind. Other things can be discussed later when we enter the sea of the path," Li Sun said to the people. He invited everyone to come, and wanted to see who would enter the sea of the path this time. Although they were sitting together at this moment, everyone knew clearly that this did not mean they were friends. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Luo Yuming and Junmu no longer competed against each other, but the grievances had been settled since the Battle of Taishan Mountain, and would continue after they entered the sea of the path. Luo Yuming and Junmu no longer competed against each other, but the grievances had been settled since the Battle of Taishan Mountain, and would continue after they entered the sea of the path. During this trip to the sea of the path, the top forces directly own quotas, but the ordinary cultivators in the higher heavens realm are not so lucky to have quotas to enter the divine palace, Li Sun said. However, the divine palace considers things carefully. For those who enter the divine palace to seek the path, they will enter the sea of the path before us. Countless people will compete for some opportunities to enter the palace. Among the people who are present in this room today, is there anyone who wants to enter the palace? Everyone naturally understood that what he meant to enter the divine palace was to study the path under the guidance of the divine palace. In fact, Li Daozi, the strongest talent of the divine swordly family, used to cultivate in the divine palace, and had gained a great reputation. The people of Taishan Mountain were impossible to do it. Taishan Mountain was a force with influence. And if a disciple belonging to Taishan Mountain also entered the divine palace, it would be the same as having a foot in both camps. However, the top clan forces like the Golden Divine Nation and the Changfeng family were able to do it. Brother Guy, have you thought about it? With your talent, you will surely be able to get top-level resources for cultivation after you enter the divine palace. Li Sun asked Gai Shishir. Not long ago, Gai Shishir wanted to become the Lord Taishuan's disciple, and masters of such level did exist in the divine palace. However, becoming their disciples was an extremely difficult thing, and even Gai Shishir was not likely to make it. I seek for the power that dominates the world, and it does not conform to the idea of the divine palace cultivation. So I will not enter the palace, Guy Shirshir said. The divine palace didn't get involved in secular disputes, which, in his view, was too pedantic. Brother Guy, you refuse to go to the divine palace because their idea doesn't fit in with yours, which indeed shows your boldness of vision. Li Sun smiled and said, among the disciples who cultivated in the divine palace, how many of them would really stay in the palace and hold the same philosophy as the palace? Very few of them. May I know what philosophy Brother Guy holds? Li Sun asked. I hope the path of martial arts dominates the world, and where the glory of the divine nation passes by, all beings kneel down and worship, Guy Shirshir said. The character he worshipped was a truly unparalleled, one like Dong Huang the great emperor, the only one who ruled over the divine land. If one day he could reach that level, wherever the glory of the golden divine nation covered, he would enjoy everyone's worship. Everyone looked at Guy Shirshir and thought he was just as his name suggested. The divine nation took this name for him, which destined his character. The path of martial arts should dominate the world. Li Sun smiled and said, isn't it something all the cultivators in the world are pursuing? But the only thing is, not to mention the vast divine land, only the higher heavens realm had numerous strong warriors. In this trip to the Sea of the Path, besides us, there were other disciples selected from the divine palace this time. Of course, the stronger ones might have already entered the divine palace. My elder brother Li Daozi is among them. In this generation, who could dominate the world and be unparalleled? Who dared to say like that? Li Daozi of the Li family, that figure of the sky-burying god clan, or the other few warriors in the divine palace? What about you? Guy Shirshir looked at Li Sun and asked. The divine sword Li family has already had Li Daozi. Is there another place for you? I never think about comparing myself with my elder brother. The world is so big that it could accommodate many top characters. For me, it is enough if wherever the divine sword passes, no other sword can compete with it, Li Sun said. Do you think your swordsmanship is invincible? Guy Shirshir glanced at the direction where disciples of Taishan Mountain were located and said, the Lord is also good at using sword. Now, I'm afraid that his swordsmanship is the best in the upper heavens realm. Taishan Mountain has sword abyss. Now their swordsmen in training must have arrived. The Lord's divine sword is indeed a supreme sword technique, but I still think that the divine sword Li family's divine sword is the best one in the higher heavens realm, Li Sun said slowly. He looked at the people of Taishan Mountain and said, after entering the Sea of the Path, there will be opportunities to consult about the fleeting divine sword of Taishan Mountain. I am curious about what level of cultivation you have reached. On that day when the Lord made the breakthrough, it was said that there was a mysterious cultivator crossing the sky with a sword who accomplished the second level of the fleeting divine sword, cleave of all things. If he is of Saint Plain, he should be the strongest one cultivating in fleeting divine sword below Runhuang level in the Taishan Mountain, right? At this moment, a handsome young man of the Changfeng family said, is that person here? The people of Taishan Mountain were speechless for a moment, and the strongest swordsman they had here was Wan Shuyi. They still didn't know who that mysterious swordsman in training was. Do you think he really was a swordsman in training? Luo Yuming said sarcastically. He must be a Runhuang in disguise. It should not have had anything to do with the Lord, Chang Fenglai from the Changfeng family said. He thought that the Lord would not do so as a man of such a high level of cultivation. Then asked the people of Taishan Mountain, where is the swordsman in training? Luo Yuming said with a somewhat contemptuous tone. Why can't he be concentrating on cultivation in Taishan Mountain? Luo Yue responded coldly. She had thought about it before, but after being reminded by Wan Shuyi, she saw others questioning Lord and was displeased. So, who was this swordsman in training? Did you deploy the sword at that time? Was it you yourself? Luo Yuming asked. He wanted to know if there was such a swordsman in training in Taishan Mountain. Luo Yue was speechless for a while, and she indeed did not know. Luo Yuming sneered and didn't say anything. Everyone fell silent, and the atmosphere was a bit cold. Let's put the topic aside. Li Sun spoke up to break the awkward atmosphere. He then said, during this trip, there must be someone who could prove themselves Renhuang. Let's see who will have this opportunity. Nobody answered, and everyone just looked at the sea of the path in the distance. On this trip, the big figures of the upper heavens realms would gather together. Besides them, many top characters from the upper heavens realms would also participate, who could prove themselves. All Nirvana plane cultivators were craving for the chance. At this moment, some people looked toward the direction of the sea of the path, where there were many people coming by boat to this side of the coast. Suddenly, many people's eyes fell on them, including Futian. Were these people from the Divine Palace? It caused a sensation in the lower floors. Many people in Wanghai restaurant looked over there, and many warriors gathered toward the coast too. Soon, many small boats approached the coast, and someone announced aloud, "Tomorrow, for those who want to enter the palace to study, please come to the sea of the path and receive the assessment from the palace. This assessment may result in hazardous consequences, so please think carefully before making the decision." In addition, after 7 days, people from the top forces who are going to enter the sea of the path will be received by someone. His words caused a huge sensation. Tomorrow, the palace would select disciples, so immediately countless cultivators were stirred and wanted to have a try. If they succeed this time, they would also have the opportunity to compete with those from top forces with quotas, and the disciples inside the palace, and earn the chance to prove their paths. After his words finished, the people of the palace drove the boats and entered the sea of the path, and their figures disappeared quickly. However, there were countless warriors heading towards the sea of the path, and there were many people flashing down from the Wanghai restaurant and heading towards there. The event happens once every 10 years, and there is an opportunity to prove one's cultivation. Previously, there were cultivators at the peaks of Nirvana Plain who were reluctant to enter the palace. This time, for the opportunity of making the breakthrough to Runhuang Plain, they may also participate in this event for the quota, Li Sun said, walking to the front and looking at the sea of the path in the distance. Many people stood up and looked there. They all understood that the higher heavens realm was too big, and there were still many extraordinary characters, and even many senior cultivators who were very old, but had been trapped in Nirvana Plain. Among them, some had even almost stepped into the Runhuang Plain. It's an honor to meet you here today. After some days, we may become opponents on the journey to seek the path. Li Sun turned to the crowd and said, "Now you are free to go. We will see you again in the trip to the sea of the path." Many figures asked to leave, and then flashed out, leaving Wanghai restaurant. "Let's go," Junmu said, and people of Taishan Mountain left. "I want to take a walk alongside the sea of the path to walk," Futian said. After speaking, he walked alone. Little Phoenix saw him and flashed and followed him. "Let's go together," Wan Shuyi also said. He and Luoyue also headed towards the sea of the path. The group just spread out, and they all flickered away in different directions. Futian came to the coast of the sea of the path. He could even vaguely perceive the existence of the path from the boundless sea. It is said that after crossing the edge of the sea of the path and entering the real sea of the path, one could feel the omnipresent path. Wan Shuyi walked to Futian and whispered, "In fact, I've been dreaming of coming here, and now, I finally have the opportunity to take a look around. Why have you never thought about trying your luck in the Shangxiao Divine Palace?" Futian asked. There were some ordinary disciples in the Shangxiao Divine Palace. With the strength of Wan Shuyi, he could easily enter there even though he might not be able to become a core disciple. There are not many choices in a lifetime. Taishan Mountain is a very good place to cultivate for me. I have been at Taishan Mountain for decades, and have been in Sword Abyss. The world is too big, and even the higher heavens realm is boundless. Even a saint will be satisfied to find a place to cultivate peacefully, if he spends most of his time on the road. However, now that I have reached my current plane, it's time for me to go outside. Even without this opportunity, I will still take a tour. Wan Shuyi smiled and said. When he said going outside, he really meant taking a walk on the land of the higher heavens realm, to see the scenery of the entire higher heavens realm, and even to other realms. Although it might take a lot of time, it was also a journey of seeking the path. How about you? You also cultivated in Taishan Mountain for a while. I didn't hear you talk about your past except knowing that you were sent by the fourth mistress. I sometimes feel that your character is too good and too humble to be true. You are not like a saint playing cultivator. Wan Shui smiled and said. Really? Yi Futian said, smiling. He didn't know whether Wan Shui noticed anything, but it didn't matter. My luck is good and bad. Although my cultivation time is not very long, I have traveled through many places, Yi Futian said with a smile. It seemed that he was always on the road, because the starting point of his cultivation was too humble. He didn't know who thought of such an idea, to throw him in this corner of the world. However, it seemed that it was not easy to trace some things now. You also have some stories to tell. Wan Shui smiled and said. You are humble and studious, low-key and forbearing. Maybe among the 15 people who came on this trip, your achievements will be the greatest. Yi Futian glanced at Wan Shui, smiled and said nothing. He looked ahead. On the seashore, a woman in white was walking quietly. She looked very clean. Although she was not a peerless beauty, she made one feel comfortable. Comfortable, and also a bit lonely. When Yi Futian saw her, a bright smile appeared in his eyes. Long time no see. It didn't take long, but it seemed like a long time had passed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian lifted his feet and walked toward the sea of the path. Yi Futian lifted his feet and walked toward the sea of the path. Wan Shui was perplexed when he saw Yi Futian walking away. Where was he going? Yi Futian moved forward and walked toward a woman, which causing Wan Shui to be even more curious, and little Phoenix blinked as she looked yonder. The woman in white seemed to have sensed something. She stopped and lifted her head slightly, looking at Yi Futian, who was walking toward her. There was a sharp sword will in her eyes, and her temperament seemed to have transformed in an instant. Is our little girl so fierce? Yi Futian said with a smile, as he raised his hand toward the head of the woman in white. The woman in white stared at him, and a powerful sword will spat out ferociously. A powerful murderous intent bloomed, and the whole space was shrouded in an atmosphere of carnage. Yi Futian seemed not to care at all, still extending his arm. Out from the woman's eyes came a terrible sword will that enveloped Yi Futian's entire body. It seemed as if Yi Futian's hand moved forward a bit more. She would have slain him. You are still the same as before. Yi Futian smiled, and the woman's eyes stiffened. Then Yi Futian's hand landed on her head, and the woman looked him in the eyes. At this moment, that murderous intent dissipated like fading tides. She lowered her head slightly, with a gentle smile in her eyes. Clearly, she recognized Yi Futian, because only he would do that. Won't you say hi? Yi Futian's familiar voice said, and the woman gave him a nasty look, but there was no malice. Seeing the other stared at him, Yi Futian gave her a silly smile. Fine, don't say hi. The woman in white was Yaya, and she had also come to the upper heavens realm. She had come to this sea of the path. You want to enter the sea of the path? Yi Futian asked. Yaya nodded gently. Now her realm was already nirvana. At the time, she laid down her life to protect Yi Futian in the heavenly mandate demon realm, and then cultivated for a long time after that. Now she had not returned to the magnificent state she once was. But because of her experience, she was even stronger than the Sword Saint of the Void. Read more chapter on novel full. So, she came here, wanting to seize this opportunity to prove the supreme way pursued by all in the two realms, the realm of Renhuang. Of course, now her vision was different from before. For the Sword Saint of the Void in the past, Renhuang was the apex, but in this realm, she had already seen many Renhuang. Are you going too? Yaya asked. She didn't ask Yi Futian why he had changed his appearance. He was different from her. In the heavenly mandate realm, Yi Futian was too high profile, and there were too many who knew him. If there are any prominent figures from the heavenly mandate realm who were here, they would easily recognize Yi Futian's true identity. I was cultivating at Taishan Mountain, and there was a spot for me, Yi Futian said. He glanced at the vast crowds around the sea of the path and asked, Shall I go with you? No need. Yaya shook her head. We can watch each other's back, Yi Futian said. There were numerous strong cultivators on this trip, and he was not sure if Yaya should go there alone. Yaya looked up at him and looked into her eyes. Yi Futian smiled and shook his head, saying, "Very well, you will go by yourself." He had always thought of Yaya as the girl who once came from the Tombkeeper village, and it was easy to forget that she was once the Sword Saint of the Void. 2 lifetimes of cumulated cultivation, and she was stronger than he had imagined. Several times when he was in danger, Yaya was there, guarding him every time. But now Yi Futian thought that she had the ability to take care of herself. However, Yaya also needed to have her own experience in cultivation. Shenjing. At this time, Luoyue came over and asked him, "Is this your friend?" Yaya cast a glance at Yi Futian. Shenjing should be an alias. "My little sister," Yi Futian responded with a smile. Yaya was a little speechless, but she was used to it. "A swordsman?" Luoyue asked. From Yaya, she could feel a similar breath sharp. That was the breath of swordsmanship. Yi Futian nodded. "Your little sister's realm is stronger than yours." Luoyue looked at Yi Futian, a little lost for words. "My little sister is way more talented." Yi Futian smiled, and Yaya was silent. She clearly understood how talented Yi Futian was. He was the existence of a unique record in the heavenly mandate realm that no one had broken. Even in that battle with Yi Tianyu, he still had the upper hand. Yi Tianyu was also cultivating in Shangxiao Divine Palace. "No wonder you went to the Sword Abyss to learn the swords. It seems that it was because you are not as good as your sister," Luoyue whispered, and immediately guessed the truth behind it. That Yi Futian's swordsmanship was not as good as his sister. So he decided that he would go to the Sword Abyss at Taishan Mountain to watch and learn, working on surpassing his sister. If Yi Futian knew what she was thinking, he would admire her imagination. Next to him, little Phoenix made a face. She scoffed at Luoyu's conclusion. Watching Yi Futian's expression, she wanted to beat him up because he was so hypocritical. Who better than her to know more about Yi Futian's swordsmanship? This guy was truly pretentious. He stole the famous music piece from the String Emperor, and stole the sword method. But those people at Xianshan were still oblivious to the truth. "Well, you guys talk, we won't keep you," Wan Shui said, and then left with Luoyue and the others. Yi Futian looked at little Phoenix, and saw that she had no intention of leaving. When she saw Yi Futian's look, she gazed at the sea and said, "I am checking out the scenery." "Okay, take your time," Yi Futian said with a smile, then started moving forward with Yaya following him. The two walked side by side. Little Phoenix stole a glance, following their footsteps. Was this really his sister? Why was he so suspicious? Yi Futian's words had no credibility with her. "How have you been these days?" Yi Futian asked Yaya while ignoring little Phoenix, who was trailing behind. "Just business as usual, cultivating," Yaya said casually. But in fact, ever since she stepped into the upper heavens realm, her experience had been unusual. She had had several battles in which she faced great dangers more than once. But these were things of the past, and there was no need to worry Yi Futian unnecessarily now. "I heard that Lord Taishan broke through not long ago, but I didn't expect you were cultivating there. What plans do you have for the future?" Yaya asked proactively. "Things can wait. Set foot in Runhuang realm as early as possible." Yi Futian looked into the distance. The cultivation of Saint Plain was nothing in the 9 supreme regions of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Only those at the level of Renhuang had true eligibility to participate. Now he was devoting all his energy to elevate his realm to that of Renhuang. Yaya nodded, agreeing with Yi Futian's thoughts. In this cultivation world, where strength was above all else, only Renhuang could have a real foothold. The two chatted. At dusk, the setting sun illuminated the sea of the Path Sea with a glowing red, and red clouds appeared in the sky. They could vaguely make out some ethereal place in the distance. There was a flat dinghy. The scene in front of them was like a beautifully painted picture. When they were tired of walking, they sat on the beach, basking in the dusk, watching the sunset, and watching the stars when the night fell. This night the beach next to the Sea of the Path was extremely lively, for all those who had come from all sides were gathered here, waiting. The next day, when the sky began to light up, many were looking forward, gazing at the sea of the path intently. Finally, they saw the small dinghies appearing in the sea of the path. And without being aware of it, they seemed to be near already. Those who wish to enter the divine palace, enter the sea of the path. A Renhuang cultivator announced loudly in a clear voice that had a strong power of penetration. At this moment, all of Linxiao City could hear his voice. Suddenly, those on the shore of the sea of the path walked toward the sea. And even in the distant Linxiao City, there were people continuously coming through the air. In an instant, the shore of sea of the path was crowded with countless cultivators. Furthermore, most of them were of unblemished saints, the third realm of the Saint Plane, and Nirvana, the fourth realm of the Saint Plane. This time, it wasn't simply for the purpose of seeking the way at the divine palace, but also to bear testimony for their way. Therefore, there were more people from the other two realms. There were people in all kinds of attires, and some were even white-haired elders, who had already reached the top of Nirvana. This time, though the chances were slim, they still wanted to fight for an opportunity. As people entered into the sea one after another, Yaya looked at Yi Futian and said, "I'm going now." Yi Futian nodded gently and said, "Watch yourself." "I will." Yaya moved forward and stepped into the sea of the path. A sword appeared at her feet and suspended in the sea, replacing the sailing vessel with a sword. She moved forward, and her white garment fluttered. She appeared carefree and unfettered. After a long while, those who came as guides turned towards the depths of the sea of the path, and countless people walked deeper into the sea. "Goodbye," Yi Futian whispered. In a few more days, he would meet up with Yaya. After everyone left, the seaside looked a lot empty. Although there were still many people there, it seemed to be much quieter compared to before. "Lover," a voice was heard, and Yi Futian looked back at little Phoenix. He said in a condescending tone, "Little kids are not to comment on adult matters." Little Phoenix blinked and asked, "Who's little?" Her face was angry. Her fiery red clothes accentuated her sexy figure perfectly. She was the equivalent to a young human woman. Indeed, she could not be said to be little in any way. However, in Yi Futian's view, her mindset was indeed that of a child quite immature. "Little everywhere," Yi Futian retorted with contempt. A fire of anger sputtered out from little Phoenix, and she couldn't wait to beat Yi Futian to a pulp. But it seemed that winning would not be likely. In a blink of an eye, a few days later, there were once again many cultivators who came to the sea of the path. But this time, instead of going to the sea of the path, they had come to watch those who had entered the sea of the path. Above the sky, the golden divine light shone, and Gaishirshir stood proudly above the void. Countless people looked up to that brilliant golden glory. Cultivators from the golden divine nation were here. There was another terrifying dark demonic will of death circling. It was Luo Yuming of the divine capital of Xiling, whose group had arrived. With sword chi whistling, the cultivators from the divine Swordly family were now here. After the arrival of the divine Swordly family, a group of cultivators with unusual temperament stepped in the void. The breath exuded from their body was unfathomable. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the Li family. The cultivators of Sky-Burying God clan were here. Afterward, the Changfeng family also arrived. The people of Taishan Mountain were there already early on. Yi Futian looked at the many figures in the void. In the distance, in the sea of the path, another small dinghy appeared, and it was the guide from Shangxiao Divine Palace. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. They are here. They are here. Next to the sea of the path, all eyes were on the guides, as these most outstanding people selected by the upper heavens realm, who possessed the admitting quota to enter the sea of the path, and they were about to set off on their journey. To seek the way in the sea of the path was a once every 10-year event. Every 10 years, there were those who returned, having proved themselves to be Renhuang. Some, having overwhelmed all the others, proved themselves to be unparalleled. And then there were also geniuses who fell from the altar. It's a pity that they wouldn't be seeing any of it, and could only wait here. The sea of the path was immense and vast. If not a disciple of the divine palace, and there were no guides to lead the way, they would not be able to cross. It was a feat that even those of the lower Runhuang realm would be hard-pressed to achieve. Never mind those who were just in Saint Plain. "Let's go," said the guides. Immediately, everyone walked forward. Some transformed their will into dinghies that landed on the sea upon which they traveled. Some transformed their will into leaves upon which they sailed through the winds. Then there were also people of the divine swordly family, who turned their way into sharp swords, shuttling upon the sea. "Departure," Junmu said in the direction of the 15 people from Taishan Mountain. Suddenly, everyone stepped into the sea. Yi Futian's will turned into a dinghy upon which he stood, and traveled along with everyone, following the guides who were in the distance. On the shore of the Sea of the Path, countless eyes gazed at those who were fading away in the distance. It was difficult to calm down for a long time. Some of them left, but some stayed, ready to wait here until the day they returned to see the results of this journey. In the vast sea, the cultivators of all camps appeared in different directions and darted forward. As they went deeper into the Sea of the Path, they all sensed that this Sea of the Path was a place hidden with real way, nurturing infinite will of the way. The boundless Sea of the Path was giving them an extremely fantastic feeling, as if the sea itself was alive. Beholding such a sight, there is an urge to sing out loud. Not far from Yi Futian, Wan Shuyi, riding upon the sword, was surveying at the vast sea. He felt ambition in his heart, and he looked forward to everything that was to happen. Looking forward to the divine palace, looking forward to the many top personalities he would encounter at this moment and in the future. Although he cultivated at Taishan Mountain, he had longed for the divine palace for many years, and now he finally had the chance. Yi Futian smiled slightly when he heard Wan Shuyi. Presumably, everyone on this trip felt tremendous pridefulness in their hearts. As a top character, it was natural to want to witness all the extraordinary figures of the world. Read more chapter on novel full this time. It proved that they all came together, and they were called by the divine palace, which added more excitement to the whole affair. With this scenery and at this moment, won't junior sister Jean play something for us? Some cultivators from Taishan Mountain said with a smile. Li Jin was a Guqin master in Guqin Valley, and her talent in music was extraordinary. The mood expressed by her playing was very powerful. At this moment, if it was accompanied by music, it would be a tremendous pleasure. "I must respectfully decline," Li Jin responded calmly. She turned her gaze to look at Yi Futian, saying, "Xinjing has been staying in the string pavilion for a while, comprehending the music left by String Emperor. He has reviewed many of the scores, so he must have learned quite a lot of pieces that would fit the mood right this moment." "That's true. Brother Xinjing has been at Taishan Mountain for some time, cultivating in String Pavilion. Yet we have never heard Brother Xinjing play." Chenyu, a disciple of Guqin Valley, said while laughing heartily. The reason why he wanted to invite Yi Futian to play was not malicious in intent, but Yi Futian entering the String Pavilion had attracted their attention, and they had deliberately paid a visit to the String Pavilion. Now, Yi Futian had obtained one of the 2 places left by Lord Taishan. They were curious about Yi Futian, and wanted to see how he accomplished he was in music. Yi Futian smiled when he heard Chenyu. He nodded, saying, "Very well, but my musical attainments are limited, so I won't be playing any pieces of the String Emperor. However, I will play something that I wrote before." "That works." Chenyu nodded with a smile. Yi Futian did not disappoint this time. The way of the wind wrapped around the dinghy, moving it forward. Yi Futian sat cross-legged, and a Guqin appeared in front of the dinghy. Yi Futian placed both hands on the strings, and began to pluck the strings. The sound of the Guqin was quiet, peaceful and very pleasant. It could easily lure the listeners into that mood, like the peaceful life of an ordinary young man, sunny and simple. Li Jin and Chenyu listened carefully, as they were both well acquainted with the art of Guqin. Yi Futian's music was very pure. From the standpoint of Guqin, it had a very solid foundation. He had immersed his entire being into the music. The waves from the Sea of the Path were lighting, splashing him. They seemed to also caress the strings, muffling but powerful, and actually integrated into the mood of the music. The gradual change in the sound of the music seemed to make the listeners feel the waves of life. The mood was no longer one of ordinary routine, but moved forward in adversity. The sound of Guqin is perfectly integrated into the natural mood. Luoyue listened quietly. Once, she had heard Yi Futian playing in Taishan restaurant. Now listening to it again, it was a different kind of feeling. Yi Futian's music was very pure. There was no trace of fault. A dinghy shot forward and shuttled in the sea of the path. He bowed his head, stroking the strings. The sound of Guqin gradually became higher. As its clear sounds sailed across the waves, reaching the sky, it caused the listeners to involuntarily feel a sense of pride, as if they were riding the wind and waves. Excellent playing, Wan Shuyi praised. This piece of music seemed to fit his heart. And not only him, but many seemed to have been immersed in the sound of the Guqin, listening quietly. The sound of music was not becoming louder and louder, breaking the giant waves, hitting the 9 heavens. The sound of music filled the vast sea of the path, as Yi Futian was completely immersed in his performance. Those who were around listening to the music also seemed to be immersed within it. A smile appeared on Wan Shuyi's face. He said, "This is how a real man should be, filled with great enthusiasm and confidence. One man, one sword. Whoever asks must first try the sharp point of his sword, and one sword ought to be enough to break all obstacles." He looked at Yi Futian and marveled. Shunjing, when cultivating on Taishan Mountain, was humble and low-key. He was extremely restrained, but it was unexpected that he could perform such ambitious music. It was said that the sound of music reflected the human heart. The music played by Yi Futian reflected his state of mind. So, what kind of state was he in at this moment? Was this the real him? Wan Shuyi smiled. Low-key and restrained, humble and eager to learn. This was the Shunjing, who cultivated on Taishan Mountain. Today, in the sea of the path, there was a great sense of pride in the music, which had broken through the 9 heavens. For all those talents in the world, no matter who was in front of them, they would move forward without a second thought. Were the Shunjing on Taishan Mountain and outside Taishan Mountain different? He was rather looking forward to it. Li Jiyin and Chen Yu were also slightly moved. When the music stopped, their moods were also quite affected by the sound of the Guqin. Li Jiyin praised and said, "I understand now why Miss Four sent you to Taishan Mountain." Perhaps, Miss Four had sensed Yi Futian's extraordinary talent in the arts of music. Yi Futian merely smiled. Li Jiyin looked at him in earnest and said, "You have the string pavilion as a companion. You should work harder and not waste your talents." "Thank you." Yi Futian responded with a smile to Li Jiyin. In the void not far behind them, a sarcastic voice was heard. "I didn't expect that they admitted those who were just unblemished realm. No matter how ambitious the music is in the face of power, everything is just fluff." The speaker was Luo Yuming. They had been following not far behind the people from Taishan Mountain. On this journey to the sea of the path, they would probably do something to the people of Taishan Mountain. Now that everyone was still following the guides forward, so they had no plans to make their move yet. The people of Taishan Mountain all displayed a look of displeasure, but they didn't say much. They had already resolved to take caution in their hearts. But Yi Futian didn't seem to have heard what he said, nor did he look in Luo Yoming's direction. Everyone was shuttling forward. After a long time, they had gone deep into the sea of the path, and a giant wave roared in front of them. A behemoth appeared in the waves, and it was a divine turtle that had obtained the way. His torso was immense, almost palace-like. He regarded everyone with his giant eyes. Turtle Emperor. Many people were slightly shocked. Even the guides were bowing in salute. "You may go," the divine turtle said to the guides. Suddenly, the guides nodded and left via air. The divine turtle looked at everyone and said, "Follow me." As he finished speaking, he turned around and plunged his huge body into the water. He continued to move forward in the sea of the path. The crowd followed close behind. Not long after, they saw the divine turtle hitting forward, as if to break something. Seawater now fell from the sky. When everyone passed through a slew of giant waves, though they were still in the sea of the path, many felt that they seemed to have entered another space within the sea of the path. The forward movement of the divine turtle had slowed. As they continued to move forward, in the sea of the path, they saw a mountain peak that was inserted into the sea of the path. It rose high into the sky, mountain of the sea. Many people were a little amazed, but when they went forward sometimes, there would be a mountain peak that came into their view. It was strangely shaped, and the will of the great path was incredibly rich and concentrated here. Finally, they saw a fantastic landscape. In a space from quite a distance in front of them, there seemed to be a mirage of Fey Palace, sitting on an ancient peak, surrounded by mountains with what seemed to be countless strange-looking peaks. Not only that, but with a closer look into the distance, one was able to discern that in this space between heaven and earth, there were already many people waiting. It was as if they had come earlier, and had been waiting for a long time. "We are here," everyone said in their hearts. This should be the end of their journey. The body of the divine turtle floated to the top of the water, and a sound came out of his mouth. Its powerful vibration seemed to be heard by everyone in this area. Up there is the end of the sea of the path. At the end of the sea of the path, there is a road to the great path. The voice came from the mouth of the divine turtle. He said, "Go." When his voice fell, everyone broke through the air at the same time with incredible speed. The swordsmen of the divine swordly family traversed the void with their swords. Not to be outdone, the cultivators from the sky-burying god clan, and the people of the Changfeng family traveled by wind. The cultivators of the golden divine nation flashed the golden divine light, and wherever the golden divine light passed, it was blinding to those who were present. "Let's go," Junmu said. The people of Taishan Mountain also galloped out, and each moved forward. Futian drove the flat boat forward with flying speed. At the end of the sea of the path, ought to be the so-called the land of proving the way. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.